Story 1. I have a friend who is a frequent flyer. She always chooses a window or aisle seat and puts on her headphones as soon as she sits down. She has been asked several times to switch seats and usually ignores the requests, pretending she cannot hear them. Most people leave her alone, though 2 or 3 have tapped her on the shoulder until she responds. She simply looks at them and smiles, saying, "No, thank you. That doesn't work for me," before putting her headphones back on. This has confused them, and they typically leave her alone. Story 2. I got scolded for this exact scenario on a trip a few weeks ago. The mother asked if I would switch the window seat for the middle seat so her child could look out the window. She didn't even offer her aisle seat because she would be uncomfortable in the middle seat. I told her it was absurd of her to ask, and she got the flight attendant involved. The flight attendant asked if I would move, and I inquired where they would move me that would be convenient for me. They said first class. The lady was not impressed that I got upgraded. Story 3. Just got back from a trip on United Economy Plus to Europe, front row, 10-hour flight. The man next to us was very patient for the first hour as my husband and I wrangled our baby. The flight attendant politely asked if we wanted a bassinet set up, which would require the gentleman to move from his window seat, and she also asked if he would be willing to move. We said we would love it, but only if the man was moved to a better seat. They placed him in first class for the rest of the flight. It pays to be nice sometimes. Story 4. A person asked to swap my exit row aisle seat with his partner's middle seat in a non-exit row. Quickly said no, and he seemed shocked. He pouted the whole flight while I took a nap. Story 5. I always pay for my seat selection. I've had people ask me if I could swap for various reasons. I always reply, I paid for this seat selection. The best experience was with a young couple who asked. I was sitting in the emergency exit row, which provides more legroom. He was sitting next to me and asked if his partner could swap with me because she needed more legroom due to knee pain. I responded with my usual answer. He sent her back to her seat and sat back down next to me. It seemed he really cared about her knee pain. Story 6. I had something similar happen to me once. I was traveling across the country for work, about a 5-hour flight. I had a window seat, and in the middle was a boy around 10 or 11 years old. A few minutes before takeoff, a gentleman approached me and asked if I would be willing to trade seats with him so he could sit next to his son, allowing his son to have the window seat. He was very polite about it, but I was initially skeptical. However, he showed me his ticket, first class. I happily accepted his offer, but I wanted to know why he was willing to trade his first-class seat. He explained that it was his son's first time flying, and he had tried to find seats together with a window but couldn't. He mentioned that he bought the first-class ticket intending to offer a trade so he could sit with his son. He even bought me a drink during the flight. Story 7. I felt pressured into it once. The child spent the entire time on their iPad, complaining that the plane was not as nice as the ones his dad takes him on trips. Story 8. It happened to me once, but it felt more like I was told. We've taken the window for my son, but you can have the aisle. I politely declined. I dislike the aisle and love the window, which is why I booked it. 12 hours of silent stares. But I don't care. If you want the window, book a window seat. Story 9. I don't want investigators to be confused if we all end up as charred corpses and all they have to go by is the original seating chart. You never know. Story 10. I chose the seat where I will sit. I have a 3-year-old and understand the situation. However, they should have planned better so their child can see outside at the clouds passing by. Story 11. I'm not trading for a middle seat. I almost certainly paid extra to select my seat, and I am not moving to a less desirable seat. Parents need to pay to select seats together during the booking process. Story 12. Am I getting another window seat? No? Then sorry. I specifically chose the window so I could lean against it and sleep. Story 13. Listen, we all know what that situation is. If you want to sit next to someone, purchase a guaranteed seat. People are selecting cheaper tickets where the airline assigns their seats based on the assumption that they can persuade others to move. The comment, "they aren't bullying, they are just pestering or guilt-tripping," is not the defense you think it is. Story 14. When I plan to fly, I will book the flight well in advance and carefully select my seat, whether it be a window, aisle, or emergency aisle seat. If there is an extra fee, I will pay it gladly. Passengers who wish to trade seats to sit next to someone or to have more legroom need to consider their own planning. Their issue is not my responsibility. Story 15. As crew, I absolutely dislike this situation. Last year, in particular, was very challenging due to incidents related to seating arrangements, primarily because of a series of news articles about passengers refusing to move. This led to many people on my flights standing their ground and refusing to change seats, leaving me and the rest of the crew to resolve the issues. There have been instances where a flight was canceled, or someone purchased the last two available seats, resulting in a split. I always strive to assist in these situations, but if someone is simply unwilling to pay for seat selection, then they can forget it. I personally don't want to pay for my seat selection either, but since I prefer a window seat, I will pay for it. I may not be happy about it, but I will do it because I want that seat. It is unfair for others to try to pressure passengers into moving. If that happens on my flight, the option is to sit down and remain quiet or disembark. Some passengers exhibit a significant sense of entitlement, claiming, "My children have to sit with me by law." This is not entirely accurate. A row in front, behind, or across the aisle qualifies as sitting together, and the age of the child is also relevant. A 17-year-old is considered an adult. I apologize for the outburst, but when it comes to traveling, I don't care if you are a member of royalty. You are not getting my window seat. Story 16. No, I'm an extremely frequent traveler due to my work. I book the window seat every time it is available. I will not switch unless a member of the flight crew requests it. Story 17. Absolutely not. I pay for that seat. I choose it specifically so I can enjoy the view on my flight. I enjoy watching the clouds and the wing and flaps in action. There are only a few seats that I prefer, so when I get one, it's mine. Once, a lady asked me if I could close my window for the entire flight because she was scared. I looked her in the eyes and said, "Sorry, but I got this seat to use the window. You'll have to look the other way." "You really won't close the window for me?" "Nope." I got to enjoy my view for the next 6 hours, and she made it through the flight just fine. Story 18. One time, I sat down at my window seat, put my headphones in, and a few minutes later, the lady next to me tapped my shoulder and asked if I would switch seats with her daughter. She pointed behind us, and her daughter was sitting in a middle seat. I said, "No, sorry," and she got mad at me. She said, "I can't believe how rude you are. My daughter is sitting by herself. She's just a young girl." A few things to note. Her daughter was at least 10 years older than I was. I was 18 at the time and flying alone. She even told the flight attendant, thinking she would be on her side. The flight attendant obviously wasn't. Throughout the flight, the lady kept making passive-aggressive comments to me, which I ignored. The guy sitting in the aisle seat told her to get over it, which was wonderful. Anyway, the moral of the story is that I don't switch with anyone. I don't care. Story 19. No, I always pre-book my seats and pay extra. I really don't care what the excuse is. If you cared more than I did about the seat, you would have pre-booked it and paid. The issue isn't courtesy. The issue is people not wanting to pay the extra for pre-booked seating and then trying to play musical chairs before the plane takes off. Ryanair in the UK is the worst for people trying to do this. Cheap airlines. Story 20. Absolutely not. These individuals purposely avoid buying the seats they need in hopes of pressuring someone to give up theirs. Now, Story 21. Given I paid extra for this seat, I'm not giving it up for free. If you can get the flight attendant to switch me to first class, then we would have something to discuss. Otherwise, enjoy the flight, cute kid. I'm going to put on my headphones now. Story 22. No, I chose my seat earlier and maybe you should have done the same. Have a great flight. Story 23. By the window, I am the least exposed to interacting with other people, and I am not giving that up. Story 24. I would only switch my seat for an equivalent or better one. I make sure to pay for and arrange my tickets early to secure the best seat for me. Someone else's procrastination is not my concern. Story 25. I am a frequent airplane traveler, and whether I would be willing to switch depends on what they are offering. An aisle seat? Sure. A window closer to the front? Maybe. A middle seat? Absolutely not. Story 26. My mother, who was taking her first flight ever at age 70, told them no. She might never get another chance to sit by the window. Story 27. As soon as I am seated, I put on my headphones and fall asleep before takeoff. If they wake me to ask something, I would rudely decline because I can be irritable when awakened. Story 28. I experience anxiety, and looking out the window helps. I have always told people that I feel nauseous if I cannot see outside. Yes, I book and pay for window seats. What kind of person asks someone to trade seats? Story 29. At this point, I'm genuinely offended that you are even asking me unless you are actually offering me something equal or better. No one wants your middle seat, and it is always a poor choice in the back of the plane. No one has ever asked if they can give me their first-class seat in exchange for my window seat in economy. If I booked a window seat, it is because I want a window. Why would I trade for a stranger and their random child? If it is that important to you, pay the $10 for the seat assignment or book with a better airline that does not require it, or ask the gate agent. Please stop putting this on random passengers and making them uncomfortable. Story 30. As someone who is 6 feet 9 inches tall, I spent about 5 hours ensuring that I would fit in the specific seat I chose before purchasing it. Unless the airline moves me to first class, which is the only place I am guaranteed to fit, there is no chance anyone for any reason will get me to move to another random seat on the plane. Story 31. Frequent airplane traveler here. I will kindly decline if it is a bad switch. If they are also in a window or aisle seat, then I will switch. Story 32. I always request and pay for the aisle seat. I frequently get asked to relocate due to two people wanting to sit together for various reasons. I plainly state, I paid extra to book this seat, so you can either pay double my cost or move me to first class. After that, I put on my headphones and enjoy my trip. Their failure to plan ahead and book seats together is not my issue. I've even managed to update my seat at the airport by politely asking the check-in agent. Story 33. I paid $60 to choose my seats for our upcoming Alaska trip. I chose the window and middle seats each time so my child and I could look out the window. I absolutely would not switch seats. Story 34. I would say no. I'm a larger person, and I don't get up because I'm afraid people will give me judgmental looks for getting up and making them move. It's difficult enough to exist in their space. A child would then be up and down, and I can't do that. No, not even for my own child. Story 35. Nope, someone asked me to switch seats because she and her mother, a first-time flyer, were in different seats. I wasn't going to change from my pre-booked aisle seat to a middle seat for an 8-hour flight. It wasn't my problem. Someone else obliged, so I didn't feel too bad in the end. Story 36. Just so you know, I have an illness where if I don't look out the windows, I have an accident. So, unless you don't mind the smell, I am fine with your child. Story 37. No, I expected a window seat, so I got a window seat. Especially if the child was in a middle seat. There is no way. Flying makes me nervous enough as it is without being squished between two strangers. Story 38. Absolutely not unless they are offering a window seat in an exit row or first class. I am a large person, and I prefer the window seat because I can fit my upper body into the window space, and I enjoy looking out the window. Story 39. If I didn't have to go to the bathroom so frequently, I would always want a window seat and would be willing to pay for it. Now, I always request an aisle seat so I don't have to bother others when I get up and down. If people choose to be inconsiderate and bully someone who planned ahead, then it's their issue if others won't be intimidated. I think such behavior shows a lack of consideration. What makes them think their needs come before someone else's, especially when their problem arises from their lack of planning or unwillingness to pay? It's unfortunate. Story 40. Many people in these comments need to learn to say no. You don't need to provide a reason or pretend you don't speak English. If you don't want to switch, just say no. Story 41. I tend to start feeling quite ill if I'm not near the window. However, it might depend on the duration of the flight and the age of the child. If the child is younger than 10, they should have pre-selected seats together. Story 42. Ma'am, your poor planning does not constitute an emergency for me. You will see him in Paris. Now please sit down. Story 43. I pay to sit with my child and would not travel if it wasn't guaranteed. But sometimes unexpected situations occur. If I had paid for that particular seat, I would inform the attendant or parent that I am willing to move for a similar seat or an upgrade, as I have paid extra for this seat. I would prefer not to deal with middle seat issues. If I hadn't paid for the extra legroom, I would expect a reasonably similar seat and would likely make less of a fuss depending on how the parent approached the situation. I am not particularly tall, but at 6 feet 3 inches, I typically pay for extra legroom. If I do not receive it, I can become quite frustrated. Even as a parent myself, I believe expecting someone to move because you didn't pay to guarantee it is unreasonable. There have been discussions online that people are rude for not moving, but honestly, I think if the airline cannot accommodate the request for a similar seat, the individual should not have to move. It is the person's responsibility for not planning ahead and expecting circumstances to adjust for them. Story 44. I would say no. Every time I have flown in the past 10 years, I have had to select a specific seat. I choose my seat intentionally. I will not move for someone else's child. If you do not like it, plan better in the future. Story 45. Oh, that's all right. I can stay here. Thank you. The incongruous response, which sounds like you are turning down a favor, seems to confuse people enough to prevent them from asking again. Story 46. I would generally just say no unless the seat they were offering to trade was more desirable to me. I choose and pay for the seat I want in advance. They should have done the same. There are exceptions, of course. Did we have to switch planes? And is the seating all messed up anyway? Are you being nice to me or are you being unkind? A nice smile and a please go a long way compared to being rude. Story 47. These days, people pay extra for their seats. I would just say no. If you didn't get the seat you wanted, it is most likely because you didn't want to pay the extra $10 for it. Story 48. I would simply say, no, I'm sorry. I paid extra for this seat specifically because it has a window. If that makes you uncomfortable, you're more than welcome to ask someone else. Then I would turn on my headphones or the in-flight entertainment and ignore them. I dislike entitled people. If they wanted a window seat for their child, they should have bought one. Story 49. I can guarantee that if it's a family with children who are pretentious enough to ask, the seat I am being asked to move to will not be a good one. Therefore, I say no. Story 50. I wouldn't mind switching if the seat is comparable or even better, but I'm not moving my aisle seat in a good row to one in the middle at the back. Story 51. Southwest. I saw some seats at the back of the plane. United. Sorry, but this is my seat. United, sitting by the door. Sure, you can take this seat and risk your child being sucked out of the plane when the door comes off. Delta. Calm down, ma'am, or the flight attendant will remove your child from the plane. Spirit. Sorry, but that will cost extra. Window seats have a $20 per hour upgrade fee. Story 52. I would gladly give up the window for an aisle seat. Then I can at least stretch one of my legs out during the flight. Story 53. Flat. No. I will not be in the middle or aisle if I can help it. I'm happy to keep the window open and even allow them to lean for a few minutes. However, I don't switch seats unless it's an upgraded window. It's unfortunate for everyone, but plan better next time or accept that it isn't that important and your child isn't special. Story 54. If I selected my exact seat, especially if I had to pay for that privilege, not a chance. If my new seat were a middle seat, also not a chance. Otherwise, I would take an end seat. Story 55. No, I booked that seat. I paid to sit right here. If it was important to you, you had the opportunity to do the same. It's unfortunate for you. Story 56. My friend and I sat down in our designated seats. One by the window and one in the middle, beside each other. A woman approached us in the aisle and informed us that we were in her seats. My friend and I double-checked our information and the date, confirming that we were in the correct seats. We apologized and told her we weren't moving. She appeared shocked and stood there for 5 whole minutes, blocking the entire aisle and looking at us expectantly. We ignored her. Eventually, a woman behind her glanced at her phone, which displayed the ticket information, and said, "Those are your seats, but you've got the date wrong." She wasn't scheduled to fly until a month later. Thanks a bunch for sticking around till the end of the video. Remember to subscribe, and until next time, stay awesome and goodbye.